Welcome back to the American Superbike Show, brought to you by Riding Times. Right now they have their 4th of July sale going on, so they continue to have the same lower prices that they had last month, but now you can also get a free 6-month warranty, as well as like a free $199 riding gift, whenever you purchase your e-bike or mini moto or e-moto or whatever it is you're looking for. I really do believe that this website is the best value in those machines, and I put my money where my mouth is, and I have one myself. I have a GT73, and I love it, and I've put over 1,000 miles on it already. No mailbag questions this week, but we're going to move into something new because we're going to go over the penalties of the weekend. I now know where and when to look and go and find this stuff. So that means I won't miss anything like, the penalties that were against that Jason Uribe and Ed Sullivan had before they came here to the Ridge this weekend. There was only a couple of speeding fines, and that's down from a lot because there was 13 at MotoAmerica. And for those speeding fines, they just got to pay like $150 cash fine. And then there was also a couple of fines for people not removing tire warmers at the 3-minute mark before the race start. One thing I did find interesting is that there was multiple bikes and super hooligans. That's across 3 different manufacturers and 4 different teams. They were all busted for using potentiometer sensors on their suspension, mainly the front suspension on the front. And if you're wondering what's a potentiometer, well, that is the type of sensor that they use to detect the amount of force being applied. So, it can get a good, that's where the data comes from for something like the front suspension and like reading the force as it goes around the track and be able to track and adjust for those sort of things. I think as part of a cost-cutting move for Super Hooligans class, you're not allowed to have that sort of data, that sort of telemetry going back to the pits. Whereas, these guys ran afoul of that rule. And so they, 4 guys had to miss the first 10 minutes of Q1 because of this. And it was all found on Friday. And that was Hunter Dunham and James Rispoli, both of them on Harley Davidson. So, different teams though. And then the light fighter of Josh Herron and also the Yamaha of Robertino Pietri. So they had to miss the first 10 minutes of Q1. Didn't really make a difference in the end because they all did a fine job in qualifying anyways. And I don't even think it was something nefarious either. I mean, this is probably just something that they didn't realize was against the rules in the first place. And that's why the penalty for something like that is fairly minor. All right, well, let's move on to our review of the weekend. We're going to start off with Superbike. In qualifying, PJ Jacobsen won the pole by almost 0.3 of a second. And when we got to race 1, though, Matthew Skoltz was able to get out there in the front and got the whole shot at the start of the race. But before the first lap was over, PJ was able to get back by him. JD Beach, man, he qualified 9th, and somehow going into the waterfall on lap 1, he was making a pass to go into 2nd place. Like, how in the world did he get up there? They must say he had a fantastic start. And as JD was making that pass to get into 2nd place, past Matthew Skoltz up there in the waterfall, Cameron Peterson was able to squeeze by as well and get around Matthew Skoltz. So at the end of the first lap, it was PJ followed by JD Beach and Cam P. Race 1 for Superbike, it was fairly processional, and that's fine. Halfway through, PJ had almost a 5.5 second lead over JD Beach and Cam Peterson in 3rd, and Matthew Skoltz was riding around in 4th place, and Richie Escalante was in 5th for Team Hammer on the Suzuki, and then Bobby Fong was in 6th. But then with 7 laps to go, PJ crashed. Man, I can't believe that happened again, because that's the 2nd time this year he's crashed out of the lead of a race that was just all his to win, because at the Daytona 200, after the final pit stops, you remember PJ was out front with a pretty healthy lead, and then just trying to go around the back marker in that to make that final turn, going back up onto the banking to go through NASCAR turn 1 and 2. PJ lost the front end there and out of the lead. And well, here he kind of had the same thing. He lost the front going into the corner just with a 5.5 second lead. Just unfortunate for him. I know he's dying to get back on top of that podium, and I think he's going to this year, but just had to have been gutting for him in this race. So after PJ crashed, it was JD Beach out in front, and Cam Peterson was gaining on him though throughout the end of the race, and that was really the only battle that was on the track for the rest of the race in that second half. Was and from about 2 laps to go, was the battle lead was like 0.3 seconds from first to second, and everyone else was, had a multiple second gap between, before and behind them. And then that all changed when Cam Peterson crashed out of in the waterfall when they were coming down towards the line to take the white flag. I don't think that JD Beach knew that he fell. I'm not sure if he did or not, because at the line, JD Beach just kept up a torrid pace going around on that last lap, and he was able to win by over 4.5 seconds over Matthew Skoltz, who crossed the line in second. Richie Escalante was able to get his first podium of the year in third place for Team Hammer and Suzuki, and then Benjamin Smith was the first Ducati for the Warhorse team in fourth place, and then Brandon Pasha was top 5, and Bobby Fong came home in sixth place. Andrew Lee won the Superbike Cup race fairly easily after Dion Campbell went down fairly early on. With Sean Dillon Kelly finishing 7th, Matthew Skoltz was able to retake the championship lead after race 1, and at that point he had 125 points, and Sean Dillon Kelly was 10 points behind him with 115. Going into race 2, at the green flag of race 2, Cam Peterson, man, he got the whole shot. But something went wrong for him after a few corners. And Greg White was and Jason Pridmore were speculating about the helmet. I never really did follow up to see if that was what the problem really was. I couldn't quite see myself. But that allowed Matthew Skoltz to get around him and take the lead. And, PJ was in second place behind him with Richie Escalante in third again. Sean Dillon Kelly was at a lot better start to this race. He was up in fourth place. That was good for him after you could definitely tell that, there was something off with that BMW on Saturday. And it was, it looked like it was trying to kill him in the wet. But then in fifth place was JD Beach, the Saturday race winner, and sixth place was Hayden Gillum. Bobby Fong somehow was able to make his way up to third place before the start of lap 3, however. And then in lap 6, Bobby Fong was able to move that all the way up to second. And then at that point, there was like a 6-rider group at the front, and it was Sean Dillon Kelly just kind of hanging off the back of those 6 riders in 7th place. Let's see here. PJ Jacobson got a track limits penalty that was issued on lap 8, and I bet it was for that point when he tried to go around the outside of Matthew Skoltz into turn 1. I wasn't sure, but you can see that red line dividing the racetrack racing surface and the pit lane exit. And I wasn't sure if that was inbounds or not, and it appears that it was definitely not inbounds because PJ received quite a penalty for he went pretty far across that red line. Let's see here. Whatever went wrong for Cam Peterson at the beginning of the race was definitely fixed by the middle point, because he set the fastest lap of the race while on lap 9, and he was down in 16th place or something like that. From that way forward, from there till the end of the race, Sean Dillon Kelly just kind of made his way forward spot by spot, because with 5 laps to go, Matthew Skoltz was out in front and Bobby Fong was in second. Sean Dillon Kelly had worked his way up to third place by that point, and then JD Beach was in fourth, and PJ Jacobson was in fifth, and Hayden Gillum was in sixth. With 3 laps to go, Sean Dillon Kelly was able to get by Bobby Fong to get up into second place, and that just set up that last lap. And not even just that last lap. Man, that run through the waterfall with Sean Dillon Kelly and Matthew Skoltz, that was aggressive and just so impressive, because not only how did they not crash, that was just tremendous amount of skill by both riders to keep it upright and going all the way through the corner and down the hill. Just hats off to both of them. But not only did they not crash, I don't even think they touched. Whenever I've seen the replays and the slow motions, and I don't even think they ever actually made contact with each other. Just truly impressive amount of skill from both riders. So Sean Dillon Kelly was able to get to the line first and get his second win of the year. Matthew Skoltz is in second place, with Bobby Fong finishing third, JD Beach finishing fourth, Hayden Gillum finishing in fifth place, and PJ Jacobson in sixth. Our Superbike Championship point standings after both races now at the Ridge. We have Matthew Skoltz back out in front, and he's got 145 points now. And with that win in race 2, Sean Dillon Kelly was able to close that gap down to 5 points and is net behind him with 140 points. Third place is JD Beach. He's got 111. He's only 34 points back. And we look at the schedule coming up. We got Laguna Seca. That's going to be a place where the Yamaha should run really well. And then later on in the year, when we get to a place like Mid-Ohio, JD Beach runs really well at that track. Remember last year, he took a stock 1000 bike and put it on the podium of the Superbike race. So we could have our two-way battle at the top of the Superbike Points Championship standings. It could become a three-bike battle if things go a certain way for Mr. JD Beach over the next couple of rounds. Same could be said for Bobby Fong as well. Down in fourth place. He's got 106 points, and he's only 39 points back from Matthew Skoltz. Fifth place is Cameron Peterson. He's got a little bit more of a hill to climb. He's 69 points down from Skoltz, his countryman, South African. And then in sixth place is Richie Escalante. He's got 65 points. Andrew Lee swept. Andrew Lee won both races in the Superbike Cup, and that adds to his already commanding lead that he had coming into the weekend. He's now won the last 6 Superbike Cup races in a row, and he's won 7 of the 8 that have happened this year. So Andrew Lee is, all alone out in front in points. He's got 195. Second place in Superbike Cup is Carl Soltis. He's got 111, 84 points behind him. And Dion Campbell dropped down to third place in points this weekend. Danilo Lewis is in fourth for the Superbike Cup points, and then followed by Zachary Schumacher in fifth, and Alex Dumas in sixth place. And Supersport, Kayla Yakov won pole yet again. This is her third. It was her third pole position of the year. She also won pole at Road Atlanta and at Barber. Of note, Darren Bender qualified all the way down the 8th spot, so he had a little bit of a climb this weekend from where he has been for the start of the year. Race one started, it was a very wet race. It was a very wet track at the start of the race. Kayla was able to get the whole shot early and open up a gap pretty quickly, but then there was a pretty bad crash before the end of lap 1, and it brought out the red flag. Unfortunately for Avery Dreyer and Torin Collins were both involved in that incident, and it sounds like both riders definitely have they've broken bones, but sounds like it might be a little bit longer road to recovery for Torin Collins than it will be for Avery Dreyer. In Avery's part, he broke his tibia and fibia, and broken bones is typically a 6-week process to come back from. And so I don't know, I doubt we'll see him at Laguna Seca coming up. But, it's about 5.5 weeks till Mid-Ohio the next round after that. So, there's a chance that he may not be out for too long. That's just me guessing. I should probably, just from what I saw on Instagram, what he's posted about his injuries that he occurred at that race. All right, so a red flag came out, and then during the red flag, it started pouring again. The laps of the race ended up being reduced from 15 down to 10, and then when they did get a restart underway, Kayla Yakov, she got off to another hole shot, except for this time she had Josh Herron right behind her. They were followed by Tyler Scott and Blake Davis, and by the time they got to the top of the ridge that this track is named after. By the end of lap 1, Darren Bender, man, he was able to work his way up to third place after taking the restart in 8th. Josh Herron was able to take the lead of the race going into turn 1 on lap 2, and then Darren Bender was also able to get by Yakov later in that lap. Let's see here. By the end of lap 2, Darren Bender and Josh Herron had managed to work out a little bit about a second gap over Kayla Yakov, and it kind of stayed that way through most of the race. Until about 5 to go. And then that's when Josh Herron made a mistake going into the waterfall, and it kind of backed him and Darren Bender back up to Kayla. And then, the very next lap after that, you could also tell that Brendan Kettleson was noticeably closing in on that front group. But, from that point on, over the last 3 laps, Josh Herron just put his head down. He just steadily pulled away. Coming to take the white flag, he had almost a 2.5 second gap over Darren Bender. And then over that last lap, Darren Bender and Kayla Yakov were battling. And at the same time, Josh Herron was out there on a pace to reset the fastest lap of the race again. And that just allowed that gap to continue to grow. On the last lap, Tyler Scott was able to get by Josh Hayes, and that made the final standings at the line. Josh Herron got a win by over 2.5 seconds. Would have been more, but he decided to wheelie to the line. Darren Binder came in second with Kayla Yakov in third. Brendan Kettleson finished in fourth place. Tyler Scott in fifth, and then in sixth was Joshua Hayes. In race 2, Kayla got the whole shot again, but man, what a start from Tyler Scott. Team Hammer had a lot to do. Had a lot of work to do to put that bike together after Tyler had an off in the morning warm up. But they did a great job, and he had that bike right at the front immediately. Darren Bender was able to get into second place on lap 2 in turn 1, and Darren Bender also, he was able to make passes, make his way from 7th to 4th in the first couple laps, and then in the very next lap was able to get back up to 3rd place. So Kayla and Josh Herron were running away at the front, and then it was about a 3-second gap to Darren Bender by about lap 7. Let's see here. And then we got down to turn 1 and lap 10, and that's when Josh Herron made the move on Kayla Yakov. And when Kayla tried to kind of cut it back up underneath him, she lost the front end going into the turn and went down. She was able to get back up and get going, but it did take a few minutes. From that point on, Josh Herron, he just never faced another challenge in the race before taking the checkered flag. Let's see here. Josh Herron ended up sweeping both races. Second place in race 2 was Darren Bender, and third was Ty Scott. Fourth was Josh Hayes. Fifth was Blake Davis, and sixth place was Brendan Kettleson. So he had a great weekend. He was up there in the first top 6 for the first time for both races on the weekend, I think. The championship standings after both races. Well, Darren Bender is still out in front. He's got 193 points, but that gap is now down to 24 after Josh Herron swept both wins on the weekend, and he's got 169. Tyler Scott's in third place with points. Kayla Yakov's in fourth. Fifth is Blake Davis, and then sixth is Joshua Hayes with 79 points. In Talent Cup, Kenzie Matsudaira won pole, and when it came to race 1, he was able to get the whole shot and open up a small gap after the chicane. There was a hell of a three-way battle for second place, though, with Jake Page, Nathan Gallagher, and Sam Drain. And then really close behind that was Derek Sanchez King in fifth place, and the Sawyer Lafayette was right behind him. A couple laps in, this morphed more into a front 5 and then with plus Sawyer Lafayette very close behind him. This was a home track for him, and he was doing really well throughout the weekend. But then pretty early in this race, though, from out of that fifth place, or pretty close to the front, he laid it down in that final complex after the waterfall. So unfortunately, he wasn't able to finish race 1. Nathan Gallagher took the lead with 5 to go. And when Gallagher took the lead, Sam Drain also, he tried to take a shot in the waterfall on Kenzie Matsudaira, but he wasn't able to keep it in front of him. And he ended up losing momentum and then lost a spot to Derek Sanchez King. Over the last few laps, Kenzie Matsudaira and Nathan Gallagher were able to, they were battling back and forth. Gallagher had a huge save with about 4 laps to go. But then, just the way that the conditions were changing from lap to lap throughout the conclusion of the race, that's when Nathan Gallagher and Kenzie Matsudaira were able to adapt to those conditions, I think, a little bit better than the other riders, and they just kept consistently just pulling away from out in the front. On that last lap too, from the top of the waterfall until Kenzie lost the rear end in those final couple of corners to get, to take the checkered flag, that was some of the most impressive side-by-side racing I've ever seen in a junior class. It was awesome. And hats off to Matsudaira too, because Nathan Gallagher was able to beat him to the line and he got the win. Pretty handily. Sam Dre was able to finish in second place, but Matsudaira, crashing those last couple of corners, was able to, get to his bike, get it back up real quick, and then cross the line in third place and still get a spot on the podium. That was also aided by Derek Sanchez. He had a little bit of an electrical issue on the last lap, I believe, that ended up causing him to tip over as well. But he, in the same case there, he was able to pick his bike up as well and get to the line, get to in fourth place. Colton Schaefer was fifth, and then Ian Fraley crossed the line in 6th place. In race 2, Kenzie Matsudaira got the whole shot, but boy, what a start by Sawyer Lafayette. He went around the outside and he went into turn 1 in 2nd place. He lost some momentum, because of the angle he had to take into the corner and ended up falling back to 4th, but my goodness, that was an impressive start. Nathan Gauker was able to get into the lead halfway through lap 1, and then him and Kenzie Matsudaira, once again, they just opened up a 2-second gap on everyone else in the first couple laps. They battled back and forth and just kept drafting and passing each other throughout the second race. One thing that was very noticeable, though, is you could see that there was a lot more chatter on Nathan Gauker's bike, and just the way he's able to keep that bike going through the corners with the control that he has, while the front and sometimes rear tires are just bouncing around. That's just, boy, that's impressive. that kid's got a lot of talent. 2 laps to go, and Jake Page, he started losing his grip with the front 2 and was dropping back. He had to have a problem or something develop with the tires on his bike, because he dropped off from the front 2 pretty quickly. So that allowed Kenzie Matsudaira and Nathan Gauker to just go at it with each other for the last bit of the race, and boy, it was impressive once again. On lap 10, Kenzie was able to get to the front, and it almost looked like Nathan Gauker made that happen on purpose, because he wanted to do that draft and pass move coming to the line. And boy, did it just work out. That was such a close finish. It honestly might be one of the closest finishes that I've ever seen. And I gotta admit, I'm still not completely sold that Nathan Gauker was actually in front at the line. From the photos and stuff that they show, boy, that was just so close. It could have even, I don't think it was a tie, but how's about this? I haven't seen anything conclusive enough to sway me in any direction. And that's close. That's about as close as you can get. So Nathan Gauker was credited with the win. Kenzie Matsudaira was in 2nd place. Jake Page crossed the line in 3rd. Sawyer Lafayette was able to come home 4th in race 2. 5th was Sam Drain, and in 6th place was Derek Sanchez. In the championship standings, Nathan Gauker is all out in front alone. He's got 181 points now. Kenzie Matsudaira is in 2nd with 167. He is 14 points behind. 3rd place is Jake Page. 4th is Sam Drain. 5th is Derek Sanchez. And 6th is Reese Frankenfield with 68 points. These guys will be back at it again the next round at Laguna Seca. And plus, I'm pretty sure that Rossi Garcia will be back. He was another rider that was challenging there at the front. Remember, they had a pretty close finish with Matsudaira in race 2 at Road Atlanta. So, it'd be interesting to see what he's able to bring to the race whenever he returns. Our next class is going to be Super Hooligans. Corey Alexander was able to win the first pole position for the Arch motorcycle. And when race 1 took off, he was able to get the whole shot as well. And he had a gap pretty much instantly. The battle from 2nd through 5th, though, was highly entertaining. And that was involving James Rispoli, Jeremy McWilliams, Josh Herron, and Robertino Pietri. Let's see here. Rispoli took the lead in lap 2, but Corey was able to get him back, and then Jeremy McWilliams was also, battling with those two up in the front until he crashed with 5 to go right in front of Corey Alexander. And Corey had to lose a couple spots trying not to hit his teammate. And I thought that might have been the end of his chances of pulling off the first victory for the Arch at that point. But he was able to get back into 3rd place and on the podium, steps with 3 laps to go at the line. And then for those last 3 laps, every time I tried to type the order of those top 4, it just changed before I could even type down 2 riders' names. It was just constantly evolving, battle of just 4 bikes just cycling to the front one after the other. And right up there in that battle, I have to say, I think that James Rispoli is riding out of his mind, keeping that Harley Davidson up there at the front with all of the limitations that have been placed at that bike. Now, I think we'll get a better idea when Jake Lewis and Corey West come back and join Rispoli at the Saddleman team in Laguna Seca. But just I think that Rispoli is probably riding at the top of his game right now and is doing everything he possibly can to keep that Harley up there at the front with with his competitors. At the end of the race, first win was recorded for Arch Motorcycles. Corey Alexander was able to get across the line and also get his first win in the Super Hooligans race. Second place was Andy DeBrino. Third was Robertino Pietri. Fourth place was James Rispoli. Josh Herron crossed the line in fifth on the Light Fighter, and then in sixth place was our championship leader, Gus Rodeo. For race two, Corey Alexander was able to get the whole shot again, but by lap two, Josh Herron was able to move up to second and started to challenge for the race, and then by lap three was taking the lead. It was still like a 4+2 rider battle at the front. With the same characters that had been throughout the weekend with Andy DeBrino and Josh Herron and Corey Alexander and Bryce Cornbow and James Rispoli and Gus Rodeo, but by the time it got to about 4 laps to go, it seemed to be more of just like a lot closer battle between all 6 riders. Going into the waterfall on lap 6, Andy DeBrino was able to take the lead, and he was able to kind of pretty much stay out in front. At the white flag, he had a pretty good gap coming across the line. But then what a battle for second on that last lap, though. Like, it was just every riders just throwing everything they got at each other. When they crossed the line, it was Andy DeBrino was able to get his first win in Super Hooligans, excuse me, he was able to get the first win for Yamaha in Super Hooligans. So that's a big achievement in the class for them. In second place, Corey Alexander won that battle for second and got his second podium on the weekend. Bryce Cornbow finished in third place. Josh Herron was in fourth on the Light Fighter, just off the podium. And then in fifth is our championship leader, Gus Rodeo, and sixth place was James Rispoli. So after the couple races on the weekend, our championship standings, well, Gus Rodeo is still up there on top with 93 points. James Rispoli is now 5 points behind him with 88. Andy DeBrino's in third with 78 points, so he's only 15 points out of the championship lead. Fourth place is Bryce Cornbow. Fifth place is Robertino Pietri. And then in sixth place is still Jake Lewis, even though he wasn't here on the weekend. He he started off the year well enough that he's still up there in sixth place. These riders will also all be back again for the next round at Laguna Seca. And then finally, our last class on the weekend, last but definitely not least, you guys know how I love this class, and that is the Royal Enfield Build Train Race. Brianna Everett was able to win the pole by over 2.5 seconds. So, it was looking good for her at the start of the weekend. Unfortunately, when we got to race one, Marie Maduro went down in lap 1 after making some contact with Emily Dixon, and that gave her a gnarly concussion that kept her out for the rest of the weekend. So I hope we get to see her back at Mid-Ohio. Let's see here. The race was fairly processional. And, at the end of lap 1, Brianna Everett was out in front with Taddy Pays in second, Jasmine Noel in third, and then, Waffles was in fourth, and then Karina Samoa is in fifth, and Tiffany Vo is in sixth place. But Jasmine Noel was able to get up all the way up into the lead of the race, going into the waterfall with 3 laps to go, and held that advantage all the way to the line. So she got her second win in the class. She was able to cross just over 2.5 seconds in front of Brianna Everett. Third place and getting their first podium, I'm reading this wrong. Third place was Taddy Pays. Fourth place, close to getting their first podium, was Tiffany Vo. In fifth place was Brianna Cutler, and then in sixth place was Karina Samoas. In race 2, Brianna Everett was able to get the whole shot again, and it was not a good start for Jasmine Noel. However, even though Brianna Everett was able to get the whole shot, this time Taddy Pays was hot on her heels all the way through turn 3. And when we got to about the halfway point through the race, Brianna Everett was still out in front and Taddy Pays was, challenging there. Jasmine Noel was in third and Brianna Cutler was in fourth and Tiffany Vo was in fifth and Sammy Max was in sixth place. First time we set her name up that high in the field this year. But all the way through like 3 laps to go, the top 5 were just all almost within reach of each other. You know, it was like a gap of maybe a second or a second and a half between the riders, just close enough you could see them, you can feel like you can almost close enough to do something, but just not quite. And then with 2 laps to go, Taddy Pays was able to finally kind of close that down and make the move going to get into the lead. Jasmine Noel and Waffles were each able to overtake Brianna Everett in the same corner, and then those two started swapping positions amongst themselves. Brianna Everett and Brianna Cutler, a couple more times before they got to the line. When they did get to the finish line, Taddy Pays, she was able to win her first Build Train race, and she was able to be the first Brazilian rider to win a race in the Royal Leinfeld competition. She beat Jasmine Noel in second place. Brianna Cutler was in third. Brianna Everett finished across the line in fourth. Tiffany Vo was in fifth, and Sandy Max crossed the line in sixth place. A great finish for her. And now after the 2 races, when we look at the championship standings, well, Jasmine Noel is out in front on her own with 130 points. Second place is now Taddy Pays. She's got 103. She's only 27 back. Going into the final weekend, that's a bit of a hill to overcome, but, it's not impossible to do. Brianna Everett's in third place with 90 points, and then Brianna Cutler is in fourth place, just 3 back behind the other Brianna with 87. Tiffany Vo's in fifth place in points with 68, and Karina Samoes is in sixth place with 57 points. These riders are going to have a little bit of a break, and then they'll come back for their final round at Mid-Ohio, and they're going to be the first MotoAmerica Championship to be decided this year. Well, that was all the fun action that took place at the Ridge Motorsports Park. Next week's show, we get to go straight into previewing the next round at Laguna Seca. I love this time of year. Take care of each other.